My Lord and my God, I firmly believe you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Today, December 6th, we celebrate the feast of St. Nicholas of Bari. And he is normally considered to be the original Santa Claus, the true Santa. And the truth is, we know very little about St. Nicholas. We know he was a bishop, and that he had the reputation for caring for and protecting the innocent and the wronged. In other words, we could say he was a Christian, that he had a heart like that of Christ. He was moved by the suffering of others, and also saw in those who were suffering, saw Jesus Christ, who suffered for us. And there's a story of St. Nicholas which is widely considered to be true, which is that St. Nicholas, as bishop, he had heard that a particular man in his town had fallen into very hard times. And this man had 3 daughters. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't have any money in order to provide a dowry for them so they could get married. And there just weren't any clear options. Starvation was a real possibility. And the man was going through a very serious crisis, he and his daughters. And so St. Nicholas found out about this, and he went out at night, taking with him a bag of gold, and he flung it into the window of the house of the father and his daughters. And that was money that was used as a dowry for the first daughter, right? The father found it, and he was able to provide a dowry for his first daughter, and then St. Nicholas did the same for the second and for the third. But actually the third, the dad was on the lookout, trying to discover who was carrying out these kind deeds. And when he discovered that it was Nicholas, well, he thanked him profusely. When I was a kid, on the evening of December 5th, in my house, when we were growing up, we had the tradition of leaving out our shoes with the hope that St. Nicholas, he would come by and maybe fill it with gold, like he would throw gold into the window of this man's house, but usually he would fill it up with candy, or so we thought, because we would wake up on December 6th in the morning, and our shoes would be filled with goodies, with candy bars and candies, and to be honest, I always wanted to leave 2 shoes, but anyway, apparently the rule was only 1, and we could only leave out our own shoes. I wanted to find the biggest boot I possibly could, but anyway, and so we would wake up the next morning, and they'd be filled with sweets, and I think we knew perfectly well that it wasn't St. Nicholas, that it was really our mother, but we liked it because it was an excuse to get candy. And anyway, we were just kids. And, we liked the candy. But I realize now that, that kind of missed the point of the feast. And the point of the feast of St. Nicholas, is the same point, the same message that Christ came to teach us, which is the new commandment to love one another. That it's more important to give than to receive. And Jesus teaches us that. And now that we are in Advent, this is the first week of Advent, and today's Feast of St. Nicholas is a reminder that Christmas is not far away. there is a danger to be focused on the gifts that we're going to receive, or to be focused on the candy of December 6th. Just like my focus as a kid was on the candy, or even on the gifts at Christmas. But Lord, as we grow in age and also in maturity and in faith, we want to be more focused on you. Jesus, I want to be focused on you. That's what today's feast is all about. That's what Christmas is all about. And Advent is this preparation time for Christmas, when Jesus will be born in Bethlehem. In fact, just the other day, I found out what Bethlehem means. I didn't know this. It means house of bread in Hebrew. And that is where the bread of life is born. That Jesus is born, and he will give himself to us. He will give himself to us on the cross, dying for us. He will give himself to us in the Eucharist, being the bread of life, right? The bread of eternal life. That when we receive communion, we're not receiving bread, we're actually receiving, it looks like bread, it tastes like bread, but we're receiving Jesus Christ himself. So he has come to give of himself so that we can receive him. And also so that we learn to be like him, which is to give of ourselves, to serve, just like St. Nicholas did. So Jesus, we ask you in our prayer today, how can I give? How can I serve? And not just be focused on taking or on consuming. What could I give today? What could I give to God? Maybe some time in prayer. What could I give to a friend or to a family member? Perhaps a friendly ear. Listening to someone. Or perhaps praying for someone. Or giving somebody a call. Or doing my chores around the house without complaining. Doing it with a smile. Maybe sharing something with somebody. These are all different ways in which we can give of ourselves, and it's imitating Jesus, who gives of himself constantly, even now. The other day, I was at a friend's house, and he and his wife, they have 4 young boys, and the youngest, 2 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and he walked into the living room with a cup full of some chips, some snacks, which he particularly liked. And I, daringly perhaps, I asked him for one. I said, hey, could you give me one of those chips? And he turned around, he looked at me, and with a big smile on his face, he came and he gave me a chip. And yes, it was very tasty, but it was that smile on his face that stuck with me. His readiness to give what he had. And that's what Jesus does. Born in the town of Bethlehem, the house of bread, where he comes to give of himself to us, to eat, right? We can even eat him in communion when we receive the Eucharist. And Jesus told us, he said that the new commandment is to love each other as he loved us. And that it entails giving of ourselves, just like Jesus gives himself to us. And maybe we can think of people in our lives who have given themselves to us, maybe our parents, our friends, or family members. And by thinking of them, we can find specific ways that we can give of ourselves to others. So Lord, help us. Jesus, may I learn to live this way, and we will discover that we will be happier, because it is truly better to give than to receive. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.